On the day of my mother's retirement party, my neighbor parked his broken-down truck across our driveway and refused to move it, shouting, "You should thank me for making it memorable." We towed it, legally, and as the tow truck drove off, he ran after it screaming. When he later tried to sue us for emotional distress, the judge laughed him out of the courtroom in less than 5 minutes. My mom is the hardest working person I've ever known. She was a nurse at Catholic Medical Center in Manchester, New Hampshire, for 38 years. The stuff she saw, the shifts she pulled through COVID and everything else, she never gave up. She just kept showing up. So when she told me she was retiring, my only thought was, let's throw her a party she'll never forget. We planned it for months. Rented a huge tent. Called a local caterer. My cousin flew in from Portland. Old coworkers were driving up from Boston. I even convinced my mom's best friend, Patty, to come in from Florida. Everything was lining up perfectly. Except for Frank. Frank had been a problem since Mom bought the house 12 years ago. He lived next door in a beat-up 2-story with a collapsing fence and a junkyard of a backyard. Retired mechanic, somewhere around 65. Always angry about something. Kids, dogs, trash day, noise, parking. You name it. But he stayed in his lane mostly. Until the morning of the party. 8 a.m. Trouble arrives. I was already outside setting up when I heard the horrible grinding sound of Frank's Ford F-250. The truck had seen better days about 20 years ago. It belched smoke as it crept forward. I turned just in time to see Frank back it diagonally across our driveway. Not just partially. Completely blocking it. Both ends stretched across the blacktop. Nobody could come in or out. I ran over, still holding a string of balloons. "Frank! What are you doing?" He leaned out the window, looking like he hadn't showered in days. "Truck's dead. Transmission's gone. You'll have to deal with it." "What?" No. We have 30 guests coming. Caterers. Family. You need to move it." Frank gave me a smirk I'll never forget. "You should thank me for making it memorable." I thought he was joking. At first. "Seriously," I said, "I'll help you push it back into your driveway." He shook his head. "No can do. Not my fault the truck broke. Let your guests park somewhere else." Then he killed the engine, climbed out, and walked back into his house like nothing happened. 9 a.m., pleading gets me nowhere. By 9, my aunt arrived with a car full of decorations. She couldn't even pull in. I went to Frank's door. Knocked. No answer. Knocked again. His wife finally opened it. She was always quiet. Looked like she wanted to be anywhere else but there. "I just need him to move the truck," I said. She shrugged. "It's not my problem." By 10, 2 of my mom's old coworkers arrived. They parked down the block and had to walk, hauling gifts up the street in 90-degree heat. At 11, the caterers showed up, and couldn't get the delivery van close enough. They started unloading trays and coolers by hand. That was when my mom noticed. She came out, still in her pajamas, and saw the blocked driveway. She looked at me. "Please don't let this ruin the day." That was the moment I knew. I wasn't going to ask Frank anymore. I was done asking. I called the non-emergency police line. 2 officers showed up within 20 minutes. I explained everything. They nodded along. Said they'd dealt with Frank before. The older officer walked up to Frank's door with me. This time, Frank actually answered. "Sir, your vehicle is blocking private access," the officer said. "You need to move it." Frank crossed his arms. "Can't move what don't run." The officer sighed. "Then call a tow." "No money for that." The officer turned to me. "Technically, it's a civil matter since it's partly over your driveway and partly on public curb space. But you can have it towed. Just document everything in case he challenges it." Frank didn't even flinch. "I'll see you in court if you touch my truck." I called Granite State Recovery, a local tow company. Told them the whole story. The dispatcher chuckled. "Frank last name?" Yeah. Say no more. We've dealt with him. We'll be there in an hour. Sure enough, just before 3, Jesse showed up with the tow truck. He took one look at the Ford and said, "Oh yeah? We've hauled this beauty before." I showed him where to hook it up. I had also printed a notice and left it under Frank's windshield hours earlier, stating the truck was being towed due to obstruction. Jesse, as soon as the back wheels lifted off the pavement, Frank exploded out of his house. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Following the law," Jesse said. "You can't take my truck." I handed him a copy of the police report and the notice I'd left. "Yes, we can." As the truck started moving, Frank ran after it, literally sprinted down the street, arms flailing. My uncle filmed the whole thing on his phone. The tow truck turned the corner. Frank stood there, heaving, sweat pouring down his face. He glared at me. "You'll pay for this." I just smiled. "See you in court." I didn't know how right I was. 2 weeks later, a sheriff knocked on my door. Handed me a small stack of papers. Frank was suing me personally for emotional distress, illegal seizure of property, loss of reputation. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so ridiculous. Court date, October 12th. I started gathering everything I had. Photos of the blocked driveway. Police report. Video of Frank chasing the tow truck. Statements from guests and the caterers. That's when my neighbor on the other side, Sheila, stepped in. She used to work as a paralegal and hated Frank almost as much as I did. She said, "We're going to bury him." Frank showed up alone. No lawyer. Just a manila folder and a chip on his shoulder. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, asked Frank to explain his case. He rambled about how he was humiliated in front of the entire neighborhood and lost his standing in the community. Sheila and I presented our evidence. The police report, the tow notice, photos, videos, witness statements. When we played the video of Frank running after the tow truck, the courtroom chuckled, even the judge cracked a smile. She looked at Frank. "Sir, you knowingly blocked their property, ignored reasonable requests, and disregarded police advice. Your claims have no merit. Case dismissed." It took less than 5 minutes. But it wasn't over yet. I thought that would be the end of it. We'd won in court. Mom's party had still been a success. Guests even joked about the Frank incident whenever they stopped by. But Frank wasn't done. Not even close. Over the next month, he doubled down on being a pain. Every time I mowed the lawn, he'd stand by the fence and glare. If Mom came out to garden, he'd rev his new push mower obnoxiously loud or blast talk radio from his garage. Once he stood at the edge of his property and muttered loud enough for my aunt to hear, "Towing someone's truck is practically theft. Some folks don't let things go." I didn't respond. Sheila told me, "Ignore him. He's just trying to scare you." But ignoring Frank had gotten us into this mess in the first place. A few weeks later, Jesse from the tow company texted me. "Hey, just so you know, Frank never reclaimed the Ford. Auctioned it off last week." But that wasn't all. When the truck got towed, the impound lot had to report it to the city for vehicle registration and insurance compliance. Turns out Frank's plates had expired, almost 2 years ago. And he had no insurance on it. By refusing to move his junker, Frank had practically gift-wrapped a legal nightmare for himself. 2 citations, operating an unregistered vehicle, parking an uninsured vehicle on public access space, nearly $900 in fines. And since he never paid the tow yard, they added late fees. The total ballooned to over $1,200. Frank tried to fight the tickets too. That backfired. When he went to City Hall to dispute them, he ended up getting into a shouting match with the clerk, which earned him a disorderly conduct warning. At this point, most people would cut their losses. But Frank? No. He decided to escalate. Late one night, around 1:30 a.m., I woke up to a strange metallic banging noise. I got up, looked out the window, and saw someone messing with the side of my mom's car. At first, I thought it was just a random vandal. Then I realized the figure was wearing a baseball cap and moving like someone in his 60s. It was Frank. He was loosening the lug nuts on my mom's rear tire. If I hadn't caught him, she could have been in a serious accident the next morning. My hands shook with anger as I dialed 911. By the time officers arrived, Frank had retreated into his house. But the security camera footage from our Ring doorbell was clear as day. They arrested him on the spot for attempted criminal mischief and reckless endangerment. Word spread fast. Manchester's not a huge city, and our neighborhood is tight-knit despite Frank's antics. Some of his old mechanic buddies stopped talking to him. People at Dunkin' avoided his table. One of the officers told me privately, "This isn't his first run-in. He's been warned before for retaliating against neighbors over petty stuff." The district attorney decided to press charges. Frank made bail, but the damage was done. Now, he wasn't just that grumpy guy with the broken truck. He was the man who tried to sabotage a retiree's car out of spite. Mom was shaken. For weeks, she wouldn't even park in the driveway. We set up more security cameras and added motion sensor lights. Frank mostly stayed inside after the arrest. Probably on advice from his public defender. But I knew him. I knew that stubborn, petty anger hadn't burned out yet. People like Frank don't stop until they're made to stop. And I wasn't finished either. Weeks passed. Winter crept in. Snow covered the yards, and the street quieted. Frank stayed indoors most days, only creeping out to grab his mail or shovel his walkway, always scowling toward our house. We thought maybe, just maybe, the criminal charges would humble him. We were wrong. It was late December. Just after Christmas. My mom woke me up early. Her voice shook. "The tent." "What?" I threw on boots and ran outside. The rented tent poles and canvas we'd folded and stored neatly along the fence were gone. Every last piece. Gone. Stolen. I checked the cameras. Frank bundled up, bolt cutters in hand, dragging the whole tent frame across his backyard in the dead of night. He'd stashed it behind his garage. I called the police immediately. This time, they didn't bother knocking. Because of Frank's ongoing criminal case for sabotaging Mom's car, the judge didn't hesitate. Within 24 hours, officers showed up with a search warrant. They found the entire tent frame, partially broken the canvas, now slashed beyond repair, 2 sets of license plates that weren't his, and a bag of loose lug nuts. He was arrested again, this time for theft, property destruction, and possession of stolen plates. He didn't make bail this time. February. Bitter cold. The courtroom was packed. Sheila came. My aunt. Even Jessie from Granite State Recovery showed up to support us. Frank shuffled in, wrist cuffed, wearing an orange jumpsuit. The prosecutor laid it all out, blocking the driveway, the failed lawsuit, sabotaging my mom's car, stealing and destroying our tent, and trying to intimidate witnesses by yelling threats from his yard, caught on camera. Again, Frank's public defender tried blaming stress and age-related confusion. The judge shook her head. "Mr. Last Name, this is a clear pattern of harassment, property destruction, and endangerment. You've terrorized your neighbors for months. Enough." She sentenced him to 18 months in county jail, $3,200 in fines and restitution, a 3-year restraining order preventing him from contacting or approaching us or our property. Frank's wife left him 3 weeks into his sentence. Sold their crumbling house by the summer and moved to stay with her sister in Vermont. By fall, the new neighbors moved in, a young couple with a baby. Quiet. Polite. They even apologized for the first time they parked a little too close to our driveway. My mom. She finally relaxed. Gardened again. Hosted a barbecue in July. The first guest to arrive? Jesse, the tow truck driver. He grinned as he pulled up. "Notice anything missing?" "Yeah," Mom said. "Frank." The rental company forgave the cost after hearing the whole story. They even offered us a free rental for Mom's next big celebration. She smiled and said, Maybe my 70th birthday. But this time, we'll keep the driveway clear. That was the end of Frank's reign. His own pettiness destroyed him. Every time he tried to lash out, he dug his hole deeper until the law buried him in it. And in the end, the only thing my mom remembered about her retirement party was how we stood up for ourselves, and how sweet the taste of justice can be.